Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman of the UNESCO Executive Board, Mr. President of the UNESCO General Conference, distinguished members of the UNESCO Executive Board, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big honor for me to address you today. I am a great believer in UNESCO. My vision statement and my biography set out in detail my ideas and proposals should I be elected. I believe that with my experience as a composer who creates music, professor of musical arts, and performing artist, cinema actor, as culture minister for 18 years, I'd like to point out, for 18 years, as member of parliament and one of the founders and first Director General of the International Cultural Organization Turksoy for 14 years, as board chairman of the CIS entity, IFESCO, for 8 years to this day, and as ambassador to Russian Federation since 11 years, I can offer a diverse and unique experience fit for the post of Director General. I think that is redundancy to repeat the facts about UNESCO, which are known to this distinguished audience. I am therefore going to focus on the problems we are facing. We should understand that in order to achieve the goals of organization, radical measures might be needed from time to time, similar to intense therapy. Today, the world is facing difficult times at the global level, when the role of UNESCO and its potential is challenged as never before. Military conflicts, migration, wars, violent extremism, terrorism, poverty have brought about turbulent periods in this time of globalization. They inflict crises in education, science, culture, and communication. Critical difficulties the organization is facing nowadays is not the fault of specific persons. They have arisen as a result of combination of circumstances, such as of geopolitical, financial, economic, ecological, and other nature. They have a negative impact on the system of the international relations and UNESCO as a global actor. In such time, we can't be satisfied with empty lectures and appeals. There must be action. There can be no peace without sustainable development and vice versa. Both are the two sides of the same coin. It's my firm belief that there are three principles to help UNESCO: minimizing the impact of politics, maximizing efficiency and relevance, focus on the human dimension. UNESCO's activities must not be impeded by political disputes. It would lead to a squandering of precious resources and undermine its governance and credibility. Contentious issues belong to the realm of UN Security Council and UN Secretary General, from where UNESCO should get its guidance. Less politics mean fewer political control of UNESCO initiatives. It will allow UNESCO to build a solid constituency and attract currently needed support. Dear colleagues, now I will switch to Russian. Please put on your headphones.
If necessary.
Yes. Уважаемые
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, when I was in charge of the Turksoy International Organization, and now I run an international governmental organization which is called AFESCO, I have always tried to avoid political discussion, and this has become the hallmark of the activities of these organizations and helped our organizations to stay away from avoid many unpleasant events. This experience of depoliticization is self-proved, and it's proved to be sustainable, and it can be very useful for UNESCO. We should also take into account that it's impossible to embrace what cannot be embraced. Therefore, our organization should focus on its core priorities. Together with what has been said, one of the most daunting challenges will be to restore a solid financial basis. We have to close the gap between demand and expectations on the one hand, and the available resources on the other hand. We must halt and reverse the progressive paralysis of UNESCO due to the lack of financial resources. We all know that many important, useful programs are being implemented, but they lack resources. First and foremost, we must consider how we can close this gap. In the Caucasus, there is an excellent toast that we give, which is something you do when you're sitting at the table and you raise your glass, and in the toast, people say, God willing, our wishes should coincide with our possibilities. And I think that this toast could be highly appropriate at UNESCO. We cannot always be doing more with less. This mantra has been invoked for far too long. There are natural limits that we cannot ignore. Our funding base is almost exclusively based on the assessed contributions from member states. And I think that we should take into account that it might be promising to tap the private sector for other program contributions to be allocated in an entirely transparent manner with new innovative mechanisms such as crowdfunding, which is also very promising, and these innovative mechanisms should be examined. Time has come also for serious changes in administration. I think that in the work of UNESCO, alongside with the preservation and development of traditional program sectors, the specialists who know the particular features of their states and regions should be more actively engaged. I'm sure that the candidates for the post of Director General have deep experience and are able to contribute to our common mission. The potential of such eminent figures should be preserved in the framework of specific organizational fora. I think that the first period should be dedicated to consultations with member states and structural bodies of the organization. On this basis, the results we may revisit the existing plans for UNESCO. Regarding my own election to the post, I will work constructively and transparently with all parties and stakeholders, member states, national commissions, the private sector, civil society, NGOs, the scientific community, the media, and other UN organizations. I will mobilize the talents and the leadership potential of UNESCO staff at all levels. I firmly believe that my successful and long-standing experience in arts and culture, in managing large organizations, and in international diplomacy and cooperation with many countries stand me in good stead to tackle and overcome current obstacles and hurdles for the benefit of the people we are called to serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this presentation. Spasiba. We will now move on to the questions and answers from the regional groups. I begin by inviting the representative of Group 4, Malaysia, to put their question to the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bülbül Oglu, education is the key. Education is the key enabler of all rights and all SDG goals. The key elements of overarching goal are inclusiveness, equity, quality, and lifelong learning for all. However, the key issues remain the unfinished agenda of the Millennium Development Goal, MDGs, with 758 million illiterates. All of this requires adequate financing. As global leader of educational agenda, how will you lead UNESCO to contribute to this huge undertaking, and what practical steps will you take to ensure results in the backward regions of the world? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bülbül, the floor is yours. You have maximum 5 minutes to answer the question.
The most important decision affecting UNESCO's current and future action is the 2015 UN resolution on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 70 Sustainable Development Goals. They touch upon virtually each and every one of the global challenges. This will be the guiding path for UNESCO. The SDG will influence all our activities globally, regionally, and nationally. We must support member states to meet the obligations to the 2030 Agenda. I will also be committed to educate young generation for inclusive and peaceful societies. I will also pursue UNESCO full involvement in the UN Development Group, especially at the country level. UNESCO will continue to be an integral part of UN country teams. Cooperation with all the other almost 30 entities of the UN system will be critical to allow multilateralism to bring 2030 Agenda to fruition. UNESCO has in the past already cooperated well with many sister agencies of the UN system at the global level. It has been codified by memoranda of understanding, which have been reviewed and revised periodically to reflect new trends. Clearly, this should be continued not only at the head of agency level, but routinely expanded to sectors and divisional themes. Most importantly, cooperation at the country level is crucial, especially now in the pursuit of the 70 in CDGs. UNESCO has, over the past 10 years, striving to be included in UN development assistance frameworks at the level of each country. This has helped the organization to state in national priorities, the challenge is, of course, to bring to the table the resources necessary to realize country-level projects. A few ideas how this could be done: cooperation and cost-sharing with other UN agencies and programs, mobilization of private sector contributions, cooperation with regional and other development banks, innovative approaches like regional crowdfunding.
Thank you. I now invite the representative of South Africa to put a question to the candidate on behalf of Group 5A.
Thank you, Chair. You're welcome, sir. In your vision statement, you maintain that UNESCO should maximize its efficiency and relevance through, among other things, a careful prioritization and a better cost control. Given the financial difficulties of the organization that have led to cuts in programs and staff, in which areas or sectors do you think UNESCO can further improve cost management? And in the event of new prioritization exercise, what programs would you consider as priorities or as obsolete?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bülbül, you have the floor for your
Thank you.
reply.
Thank you. There is an increasing gap between the rising demand for UNESCO's services and the decreasing financial resources. As Director General of UNESCO, I will strive to halt and reverse the progressive paralysis of UNESCO, which limits the efficacy and impact of its work. To ensure stable, predictable, and sustainable resources, we need, in my view, a thorough review of our resource mobilization strategy. This may include both a revision of our regular and hence mandatory funding from member states and of extra budgetary funds. As regards the first, we ultimately should not shy away from a review and recalculation of our scale of assessments, including member states to pay more in accordance with the capacity to pay. With respect to extra budgetary resources, we should analyze the best way to obtain resources from the governments, private sector, NGOs, foundation, global network, and international organizations against the delivery of well-defined results. These extra budgetary resource must be distributed in a transparent manner among the sectors and be allocated in line with program priorities set by the General Conference. A special feature can be self-benefiting funds by which governments provided funds to UNESCO for the delivery of well-specified programs. We should also explore the potential of innovative funding mechanism, including project crowdfunding. In all excess of extra budgetary funding, the application of a uniform overhead cost rate will be essential. Partnership deserve particular attention given their potential as multipliers. UNESCO will have global, regional, and national partnerships as well as South-South cooperation. Care must be taken that the partnerships and their resource results are equitably distributed among all 5 sectors of the organization. The allocation for resources will be facilitated by conducting a new program priority exercise, as was done in 2012, directing the distribution of available regular programs resources to those programs accorded by member states highest priority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite the representative of Morocco to put Group 5B's question to the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is as follows. According to your vision, and I quote, from my standpoint, in order to maximize the efficiency of UNESCO, we have to act on 3 main lines of action. Number 1, optimize the organization's action by controlling cost, defining priorities, and greater transparency. Put simply, we have to be prepared to work more efficiently and more productively with the limited available resources. Sir, how do you respond to those who see this acceptance of working with limited resources as a lack of ambition and a lack of mobilization by UNESCO? Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Bülbül, you have the floor to reply, and you have again up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Between the rising demand for UNESCO services and the decreasing financial resources, as Director General, I will strive to halt and reverse the progressive paralysis of UNESCO, which limits the efficacy and impact of its work, as well as its relevance. To ensure stable, predictable resources, we need a review of our resource mobilization strategy. This may include both a revision of our regular asset and hence mandatory funding from member states and of extra budgetary funds. As regards as first, we should not shy away from a review and recalculation of the scale of assessment and including member states to pay more in accordance with the capacity to pay. With respect to extra budgetary resources, we should analyze the best way to obtain resources from governments, private sector, NGOs, global networks, and international organizations against the delivery of well-defined results. These extra budgetary resources must be distributed in a transparent manner among the sectors and be allocated in line with program priorities set by the General Conference, especially which can be self-benefiting funds by which governments provide space to UNESCO for the delivery of well-defined programs. We should also explore the potential of innovative funding mechanisms, including project crowdfunding. In all cases of extra budgetary funding, the application of uniform overhead cost rate will be essential. Partnership deserve particular attention. Even the potential as multipliers, UNESCO will have global, regional, and national partnership, as well South-South cooperation. Must become the partnership and the results equitably distributed among all 5 sectors of the organization. We have to work more on attraction of private sector and business community in order to receive more extra budgetary resources. Having said this, I want to make it clear that in this process we should have crystal clear mechanism in order to avoid any possible conflict of interest. This organization, being intergovernmental, is first of all guided by the decisions and the will of member states. The private sector and business community can also be involved in this mission only in case if they already support the noble aims and goals of UNESCO and the priorities set by the governing bodies of the organization.
Thank you. Turning to Group 1, I would like to invite the distinguished delegate of Sweden to put a question to the candidate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bülbül, welcome. In your vision statement, you state that communication is a vital sphere where UNESCO must play an active role. As you know, UNESCO has a key role in the fields of freedom of expression, press freedom, and freedom of information in line with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and in accordance with UNESCO's constitution. Nevertheless, considering the continued worrying trend, still there is a lot that needs to be done. Journalists are killed and persecuted, and their attackers still far too often go unpunished. Hate, threats, intimidation, and harassment are increasing and has seen a growing trend on internet and in digital media, which contribute to a chilling effect. Women journalists face specific risks and dangers, including threats, hate, and sexual harassment. So I would like to ask you to expand on your views on communication, and I would also like to hear your reflections on these aspects. How would you approach the attempts to limit freedom of expression and freedom of the media, both online and offline? And how will you strengthen UNESCO's leading role further as regards safety of journalists and the issue of impunity? Finally, how will you ensure public access to information as stated in 1610 in the SDGs, for which UNESCO is the custodian agency? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Again, I would like to give the floor to the candidate, please.
Thank you very much. Very interesting question. One of the important tasks for CI would be to promote and safeguard the free flow of information. This is of particular importance in the present time of internet and social media. Furthermore, it must be closely linked with efforts to secure and ensure the freedom of expression. Likewise, it will be closely linked with the program to promote the safety and security of journalists. Lastly, the CI activities shall focus on the application of new technologies in a variety of fields. CI is linked to the new dimensions of the emerging digital and creative economy influencing of countries. Here, UNESCO's influence can be important, and I pledge that we must seek close cooperation with other UN agencies like ITU, WIPO, UNDP, or the World Bank. New work pattern and job profiles are arising clearly and will also influence educational, scientific, and cultural tasks. I will promote communication policies using all possible media in effective manner. Our focus will be on communicating and distributing knowledge about UNESCO's achievements and success stories. This is meant to help to build a solid constituency in the world and to attract badly needed support and new donors to the extra budgetary resource base. With due respect to the current achievement of organization, I believe that the communication strategy of UNESCO must be further developed. This is crucial in terms of outreaching not only to member states, but also to the wider public, NGOs, and other stakeholders. UNESCO has established successfully the use of social networks, but more cooperation should be built with international media, and the content of social networks outreach should be diversified and extended to all core areas of the UNESCO mandate, elegant culture. More attention should be dedicated to science education in the regard. I think we all agree here that UNESCO is sometimes unjustly misperceived in as organization dealing with cultural issues and more concretely with the branding of World Heritage Sites. But we also agree that in reality it is not the case. UNESCO is principally mandated to deal with education, science, and culture. It has a lot of success stories in all fields of its competence and is actively engaged in these matters, not less than any other entity. They will have to speak loud outside and inform the world community about all this. In short, it is my firm belief that a better communication strategy will attract more attention to our organization, thus leading to an increase in trust and eventual in extra budgetary contributions.
Thank you very much. I now invite the representative of Ukraine to put the question from Group 2 to the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to warmly welcome Mr. Bülbül and to congratulate him with his presentation of substance. My question will be very brief and simple, but I think logical and natural, and I hope pertinent. By the way, it is inspired by today morning's traditional meeting of national commissions, in which I had the pleasure to participate, which, as usual, was very instrumental, very informative, and fruitful. So my question is the following. The Constitution of UNESCO gives special attention to national cooperating bodies, nowadays national commissions for UNESCO. Since the NetComs have a unique possibility to mobilize public, private, and expert stakeholders and to harness their potential for the planning and delivery of UNESCO programs and activities in member states. So my question is, what will you do if elected to fully use this network and its potential? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mr. Bülbül, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Спасибо большое. As a matter of principle, UNESCO should avoid at all costs to get embroiled in political issues or disputes. Otherwise, it is bound to lead to a squandering of precious resources and undermine the stability of the organization's governance. More often than contentious political issues belong into the realm of the UN Security Council and the UN Secretary General, from where UNESCO should get its guidance. Since its inspiration, UNESCO has been the house of peace, dialogue, and tolerance and consensus. We must continue striving along this road. Political issues tend to obstruct wittingly or unwittingly the organization's noble mandate, such as access for all to quality education, cultural diversity, and the preservation and safeguarding of cultural heritage in all its aspects, or the creation of a better and safer environment for all. Many of the current threats and conflicts have put in danger our expectations and aspirations: military conflicts, migrations, violent extremism, terrorism, poverty brought about turbulent periods in this time of globalization, as they tend to inflict crises in education, science, culture, and communication. Dialogue and soft power must be brought together under UNESCO's roof in the quest for a culture for peace, non-violence, and reconciliation. But such efforts must generate tangible results. We cannot be satisfied with empty lectures and gestures alone. There can't be no peace without sustainable development, and vice versa. Both are two sides of the same coin. Here I'd want to mention the principle of active neutrality. It is the active engagement by the Secretariat, guided by a relevant legal basis, provided by the UN and other relevant international organizations, and dictated by the golden principle of impartiality and neutrality. This approach is built upon the idea the Secretariat must be neutral and at the same time active in the process of mediation, of course, authorized by the member state of the organization. UNESCO has particular challenge to integrate and provide synergies from its 5 sectors. They often include intersectoral cooperation and programs, must be continued and made an effective reality. Today's world is not one-dimensional. It is driven by multiple influences and disciplines. And this must be reflected also in UNESCO. UNESCO's 50-plus field offices need to be quantitatively and qualitatively reviewed. Stand-alone field offices may not be the best use of scarce resources. We definitely should explore our offices with those of other UN entities, also in order to assist member states to attain the sustainable development goals. Reform of the organization must also continue to providing strong support to areas distinguished as overarching objective of the organization.
Thank you. Lastly, I am turning to the Dominican Republic, and I would like to ask the distinguished delegate of the Dominican Republic to present the question of Group 3 to the candidate.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The sustainable development of small developing island states is one of the new priorities of UNESCO, and an action plan has been established for this. What will be your reflection on this issue, and how do you intend to ensure that the different sectors of the Secretariat work in a cross-cutting manner in order to improve results? And what strategy will you develop to obtain the necessary extra budgetary resources for the implementation of UNESCO's action plan for SIDS?
Gracias.
Thank you.
Back the floor to Mr. Bülbül. You have up to 5 minutes to answer the question of Group 3.
Questions? Above all, I will try to bring more strategic focus to this sector. On the one hand, we should avoid overlaps in-house and with other organizations. On the other hand, we should mobilize a vast, unpaid internal potential, driven by innovative and creative approaches. Following COP 21, UNESCO will have a major role to play in climate change and sustainable management of natural resources, including fresh water, and the ocean as well as small islands, developing countries. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges of our time, and its adverse impacts undermine the ability of all countries to achieve sustainable development, especially also in Africa and for small island development states. CIDC in particular remain vulnerable to crisis, to the effect of climate change and to environmental degradation. As requested by the General Conference, each major program or sector should develop concrete plans for CIDS, with emphasis on operational implementation is the field in particular, benefiting the Pacific and Caribbean islands and also African islands. Increases in global temperature, sea level rise, ocean acidification, and other climate change impacts are seriously affecting coastal areas and lowland coastal countries, including in many African countries and small island developing states. Their biodiversity wealth is under danger. The survival of many societies and of the biological support systems of the planet is at risk. UNESCO role in biodiversity and respect to biosphere reserve should be taken into consideration. They are unique educational, resource and demonstration sites. UNESCO that established itself as a well-respected advisor for science, technology, innovation policies to governments, especially in Africa, and I intend to intensify our efforts in this field. UNESCO should also seek to continue housing and leading the scientific advisory board of the UN Secretary General established in 2014. It must cover both natural and social and human sciences. Allow me to note that UNESCO is the only multilateral organization which has a scientific mandate in its charter. Over the years and decades, the role has become ever more relevant and important. The Rio Conference on Sustainable Development in 2012 was a watershed in this regard, as was the Paris Climate Change Conference, COP21, in November 2015. I will ensure that the organization will implement the various tasks assigned to it, and thus become the leading global player in this field.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I now ask the overall general 90-minute timer to be suspended provisionally. Thank you. Dear colleagues, we will now turn to the members of the board who might also wish to put a question to Mr. Bülbüloğlu. Please bear in mind that the duration of questions should not exceed 1 minute, and the candidate will have again 5 minutes maximum to reply. As you can see, we have 41 minutes and 40 seconds left until we reach the end of the allocated 90 minutes. In front of you, you have, once more, papers with the name of your member state, and you are invited to place one paper in the urn folded in 4 that our room clerks will bring around. I will then draw one paper from the ballot box to determine which member will ask their question. Thereafter, I will invite the candidate to reply. I will repeat this exercise until the allocated time is exhausted. I hope this is clear for everyone.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your nameplates if you wish to ask a question to the candidate. go one by one. One from there, one from there, one from in the far, yeah, we have time. Okay. Merci. Yes. Please reactivate the timer now. Thank you. Maintenant, je voudrais bien invite the Russian Federation, the distinguished delegate of the Russian Federation, to put the question to the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, Mr. Bülbül, as a solution for financial crisis in UNESCO, you suggest increasing transparency and prioritization. My question is how it can contribute to the solution and what will be the criteria for prioritization. Don't you think that this process can also be harmful in certain terms? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite Mr. Bülbül to answer the question put to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There is an increasing gap between the rising demand for UNESCO services and the decreasing financial resources. As Director General of UNESCO, I will strive to halt and reverse the progressive paralysis of UNESCO, which limits the efficacy and impact of its work. To ensure stable, predictable and sustainable resources, we need, in my view, a thorough review of our resource mobilization strategy. This may include both a revision of our regular and hence mandatory funding from member states and of extra budgetary funds. As regards the first, we ultimately should not shy away from a review and recalculation of our scale of assessments, including member states, to pay more in accordance with the capacity to pay. With respect to extra budgetary resources, we should analyze the best way to obtain the resource from the governments, private sector, and NGOs, foundations, global network, and international organizations against the delivery of well-defined results. This extra budgetary resource must be distributed in a transparent manner among the sectors and be allocated in line with program priorities set by the General Conference. A special feature can be self-benefiting funds by which governments provide funds to UNESCO for the delivery of well-specified programs, which should also explore the potential of innovative funding mechanisms, including project crowdfunding. In all cases of extra budgetary funding, the application of a uniform overhead cost rate essential. Partnership deserve particular attention given their potential as multipliers. UNESCO will have global, regional, and national partnerships as well as South-South Corporation. There must be vacant the partnerships, and their results are equitably distributed among all of sectors of the organization. The allocation of resources will be facilitated by conducting a new program priority exercise, as was done in 2012, directing this distribution of available regular program resources to the programs accorded by member states the highest priority. For transparency aims and measurements of results, the application of result-based management and budgeting will be essential. Furthermore, I want to emphasize the important component, which is the need for a new communication strategy. With due respect to the current achievement of organization, I believe that the communication strategy of UNESCO must be further developed. It is my firm belief that a better communication strategy will not only increase the visibility of our organization, but also will attract more attention and tangible support to our organization. This bound to lead to an increase of trust and provision and extra budgetary contributions.
Thank you. Now, I would like to invite the distinguished delegate of Uganda to put his question to the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bülbül, ever since UNESCO was founded, a number of international conventions have been authored by the organization. However, most of these instruments have remained either passive or non-consequential to a number of developing countries. For instance, in the path of the 1954 Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property, in the event of armed conflict, a lot of cultural heritage property is being damaged in conflict zones, including loss of life in Africa and elsewhere. What intervention do you envisage against this saga if elected Director General of UNESCO? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bülbül, the floor is for you to reply.
Thank you. I agree with the question that the culture sector is among the most important assets of UNESCO. Culture has a capacity to enrich society. Rather, scarcity has prevented 18 years to carry out its complex and vast mandate to the fullest. Cultural diversity must be upheld as a global asset and not as a threat. Diminishing resources for culture translates into diminishing its impact and downplaying its value. For me, culture is one of the most significant areas of responsibility assigned to UNESCO. To integrate culture in development agenda, clear objectives, definitions, mechanism, tools, monitoring system are needed. An important normative apparatus exist in the area already 7 cultural conventions deal with tangible and intangible heritage. The diversity of cultural expressions and creative industries and illicit trafficking of cultural goods. Clearly, most, if not all, these conventions interlinked and generate remarkable synergy. UNESCO has devised policies, legislations, standards, operational guidelines, monitoring tools, capacity building programs, international funds, and concrete operational actions that safeguard and promote culture. They contribute to capacity development of cultural institutions, build networks of professionals, and actively involve local communities. There are no effective mechanisms for implementing these conventions. More can be done by merging secretariat tasks and intergovernmental overview mechanisms. Trying to reap efficiency gains, we need a fresh approach to mobilize resources and partners, so as to finance not only the activities of the 6 culture conventions, the new areas of creative economy, the Creative Cities Network, and museum initiatives all deserve funding from both the regular budget and predictable extra budgetary sources. The cost of the operation of these conventions absorbed a large amount of the resources from the regular budget allocated to the culture sector. Here, innovative approaches may be required to strengthen culture activities in the future. One could be to increase expenditure efficiency. Tangible and intangible cultural heritage are often interlinked and must remain operationally credible. To achieve this important goal, we must bring to bear effective management approaches and procedures to justify our global lead role. You have my commitment that I will do my utmost to preserve UNESCO's star role. UNESCO must also maintain efforts against destruction of cultural heritage and its fight against illicit trafficking of cultural goods, drawing on coalitions with other organizations, entities, and countries.
Thank you. I have to interrupt. Time has elapsed. Next, I would like to invite the distinguished delegate of Pakistan to put his question to the candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the candidate for a very elaborate scheme of his thoughts. My question pertains to education. You have talked about education. We all believe that education is the goal that SDG 4 leads to all other SDGs, which would not be possible without achievement of SDG. What are the steps and proposals, if you're elected to Director General, that you intend to take for inclusive education, especially for least developed countries and low-income countries?
Thank you. Mr. Bülbül, the floor
Thank
is
you very
yours
much
to reply.
First of all, education is a vital component for the achievement of all CDGs. I will be committed to CDG 4 on ensuring inclusive and quality education for all, and the promotion of lifelong learning. This will be my priority, and hence UNESCO will spearhead the global education agenda. Beyond my emphasis on intellectual education, I will promote basic education, higher education, as well as science education at all educational levels, and with the full involvement and access for girls. Another area of importance with considerable impact for the future will be higher education, technical and vocational education and training. The digital economy and the rapid advance of innovation and creativity makes such education an imperative. We also must integrate the education institutes with their specialty focus, like educational planning, curriculum development, literacy, capacity building, especially in Africa, information technologies for education, and peace building into the sector's overall program. Education is, next to culture, the most prominent and influential program sector. For me, education will be the alpha and omega of our work within and outside the organization. Education will be my #1 priority, and I will see to it that the organization will deliver without fail to live up to the expectation of member states. Higher education has become an increasingly important level of the educational system. On the one hand, it serves to produce teachers for different areas and competences. Given the shortage of teachers worldwide, particularly in Africa and Latin America, this field must be strengthened and intensified. Beyond the speed and varsity of the digital economy in the present age makes it also imperative that higher education prepares the ground for innovative approaches in science and technology, as well as for research and jobs, to support what is called Industry 4.0, the digital and creative economy. As the economy of our countries become increasingly resource and size bands, this is another significant argument in favor of creating a solid higher education base. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bülbüloğlu. Maintenant, je voudrais bien inviter.
And now would call on the distinguished delegate of Cameroon, Professor Ebenezer to ask his question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bülbül, you have written in your vision statement, and I quote, "We must introduce a new form of solidarity and cooperation, and therefore UNESCO should move in that direction." And you quote this proposal against the backdrop of conflict, instability, and financial difficulty for the organization. So my question is, could you give us some idea of the new forms of solidarity that would be of interest to all, in particular to establish whether we can indeed move in a direction that would enable us to resolve our problems whilst staying on that theme and that track? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question, and I give the floor once again to the candidate for the answer.
Today, the world is facing many turbulent conflicts, instability, and various other threats. UNESCO is very well placed to provide support to countries promoting dialogue, non-violence, respect for others, peace and mutual understanding, and to promote a rapprochement of countries and cultures. In this situation, the mandate of UNESCO is relevant as never before. With its soft power capacities in its 5 sectors, UNESCO can help stabilizing difficult situations and contribute to peace and advance sustainable development through international cooperation. It can also perform a preventive role by constraining the defense of peace in the minds of men and women. Ideally, UNESCO should help build a culture of peace at all levels. Definitely, UNESCO should avoid politicizing its activities, as this will devalue its role and complicate the attainment of its noble goals. Our action should be proactive and intensive, responding to the specific challenges at hand. I am convinced that there can be no peace without sustainable development, and no sustainable development without peace. This is the spirit also of the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. UNESCO, with its 5 areas of competence, can help provide answers to the future orientation of humanity through policies influenced by foresight in virtually all areas touched by the Sustainable Development Goals. UNESCO, with its expertise in all spheres of competence as an intellectual center, should be perceived only as capacity-building agency rather than development. In my view, UNESCO should prepare policy guidelines to be carried out by member states using the capacities of national commissions. I welcome warmly and with admiration any musical initiatives. As you may have gathered from my vision statement, I strongly believe that music and music education has an innate power to bring people together, promote understanding and tolerance, and foster reconciliation. The networks of children and youth orchestras and music schools are a strong expression of a country's and community's creativity and dedication to music. Yeah, just a moment. Yeah. As I indicated already in my vision statement, it will be my intention to create music programs essentially from extra budgetary resources and support. It would be integrated into the culture sector, and field offices would be included to promote such programs and their objectives. From time to time, such orchestras could then be innovated to perform at UNESCO events. This strong emphasis on feasibility and outreach, the impact of such initiatives could be significant among people and through the media.
Thank you. The usual suspects. Sorry, not for the protocol. I would like to invite the distinguished delegate of Togo to put his question to the delegate, to the candidate.
Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my thanks to Mr. Bülbül for his presentation and answers. My question is on science, and in particular on science of the oceans. Mr. Bülbül, the 21st century is the century of the oceans. What do you think about that statement, which is in the introduction of the strategic plan of the International Oceanographic Commission? If you were to become the next DG of UNESCO, what initiatives would you take in order for the organization to turn that statement into reality? Thank you.
Merci, Professor Seydoux. And I give the floor to the candidate to reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important questions. Just a moment. Through its Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, UNESCO has the responsibility to promote international cooperation towards scientific understanding and systematic observation of the changing world climate and ocean ecosystems. This will underpin global governance for a healthy ocean and global, regional and national management of ocean risks and opportunities. With other agencies involved in ocean matters, I will direct UNESCO to maintain its role as an actor to reinforcing ocean knowledge and the management of the ocean. Sustainable Development Goal 14 calls to conserve and use the ocean, seas and marine resources for sustainable development, This includes the minimization of the acidification of the ocean, including through broadened scientific cooperation. UNESCO's experience and capacities will be brought to effective use, and I will support Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission strongly in these activities. The natural and social sciences and key drivers to create green economy and societies particular attention must be paid to the crucial fresh water, biodiversity and the ocean. Fresh water remains a critical element of security, inclusion and peace, with its relevance bound to increase due to demographic growth, urbanization and climate change. UNESCO is well placed within the UN system to respond to the needs of member states in this field due to the uniqueness of its international hydrological program devoted to freshwater governance, management, science and education. The new Agenda 2030 has accorded an important place to water, with ADG 6 ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. UNESCO, together with other competent agencies of the UN system, will have an important role to play, such by increasing water use efficiency and supply of fresh water to address water scarcity. UNESCO responsibilities also extend to international cooperation and capacity building for water and sanitation-related programs, including water harvesting, desalination, water efficiency, wastewater treatment and recycling, especially also in Africa. As Director General, I will pay the utmost attention to this task, as they are crucial for lasting development in many countries.
Thank you. I'm now taking the last question. Sorry. I would like to invite the distinguished delegate of El Salvador to put the last question, unless you want to give the chance to another board member.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And welcome to you, sir. As you know, UNESCO has a number of important cross-cutting programs and issues. How will you ensure intersectoral implementation of programs, particularly in Latin America and the Caribbean? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, and I give back the floor to the candidate to answer. You have now 7 minutes and 54 seconds left. You can answer shortly to this question and then use the rest of the time for your final statement.
No. Yes. Yes.
It's up to you how to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Today, the world is facing many turbulent conflicts, instability, and various other threats. UNESCO is very well placed to provide support to countries, promoting dialogue, non-violence, respect for others, peace, and mutual understanding, and to promote a rapprochement of countries and cultures. In this situation, the mandate of UNESCO is relevant as never before. With its soft power capacities in its 5 sectors, UNESCO can help stabilizing difficult situations and contribute to peace and advance sustainable development through international cooperation. You can also perform a preventive role by confronting the defenses of peace in the minds of men and women. Ideally, UNESCO should help build a culture of peace at all levels. Definitely, UNESCO should avoid politicizing its activities, as this will devalue its role and complicate the attainment of its noble goals. Our action should be proactive and intensive, responding to the specific challenges at hand. Possible free?
Yes.
Yes.
You may use the rest of the time for your final statement, if you wish.
Yes.
If you wish.
Yes.
It's up to you how to divide the time.
Yes. Definitely, UNESCO should avoid politicizing its activities, as this will dilute its role and complicate the attainment of its noble goals. Our action should be proactive and intensive, responding to the specific challenges at hand. I am convinced that there can be no peace without sustainable development, and no sustainable development without peace. This is the spirit also of the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you. I'm free. Possible?
Would you
5 minutes?
Yes. Would
Yes.
you like to make your concluding remarks?
Concluding, yes. Что? Yes. Possible?
Yes.
Yeah. Так, скажите, что я на русском буду выступать. Пусть наушники оденут, кто хочет.
The candidate says that he will speak in Russian. Would everybody please put on their headsets?
Уважаемые коллеги,
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Executive Board, over the past 2 days you have worked very hard. Of course, it's difficult listening to 9 candidates and listening to them expressing their views. I would like to say that today at present all the candidates who have submitted their candidacy should be worthy of our organisation. Your task is a difficult one, but I think that you have to steer your choice towards those who will be able to take difficult decisions, who can take UNESCO forward, who can restore stability and prosperity to our dear organisation. I could dwell on this theme, but unfortunately I only have limited speaking time, and what I would like to say is that I'm myself unsatisfied with my own command of English, but I think that's probably not the main thing. What's important is what is in a person's mind, how he can settle matters, how he can take issues forward. He can, however, regarding languages, he can work on that. I have the greatest respect for French language and culture, and I hope that over the next 5 months I will be able to improve my French as well. Thank you very much for your attention, and I can assure you that I will learn French as quickly as possible. I love French culture, and I will be very happy to engage with the French-speaking permanent delegations. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. My thanks to you all.
Of English and French. My consolation is that great Greek philosopher Socrates had no knowledge of foreign languages. However, that did not prevent him from having clear ideas. Поэтому я думаю, что
I think that the main thing is to focus on the problems of our organization. And again, I wish to assure you that if I were to be elected to this position of high responsibility, I will work in a transparent, open manner. I will be accessible to all on all matters, and I am convinced that through my experience in international organizations that we should have even more cooperation between member states, because UNESCO is composed of member states which directly take their work ahead. And I will examine all our programs, and of course I will have to make some unpopular decisions, but these would be first of all intended to stabilize the financial situation. As we know, in today's turbulent world, financial resources, financial matters are very important. The world is going through a very turbulent period. I'd like to wish you all the best of health, every success, and I hope to see you again in October. Thank you very much.